Hey everyone, it's Dr. Ramani. Welcome back to this YouTube channel on narcissism, narcissistic relationships, and healing. And today we're going to talk about 10 ways to become more narcissist resistant. If you got something to add to this list, please do. I wasn't able to come up with 10. There's more hiding in here though. Now there is no vaccine, booster, magic pill, or repellent you can put on yourself or take to avoid narcissistic people. There is no citronella candle you can burn, no bug zapper. It is a personality style. It's there, it is rewarded, and people fall for it. In chapter 7 of It's Not You, if you want all the pointers on being narcissist resistant, get the book. Link to order it is here in the show notes. It's time to focus on narcissist resistant, how we can get more immune, have more repellent, as it were. This chapter and these tips are as close to repellent as you're going to get. Because once your healing from narcissistic relationships is underway, you start feeling more grounded. I promise you it's coming. You start feeling more grounded. You find more sure footing in your identity, less ruminating. It's not the end of the story. You may still have to manage the narcissistic folks in your life, the relationships you are still in, and be prepared for the folks you are going to meet. I am going to share some tips that are in the book, but I'm not going to share all of them because, I'm trying to entice you to go read the rest in the book. So let's start with the number one way. Now, this is not the top way, but it's number one on my list. To become more narcissist resistant could be the top way, which is know what it is. Now, you should have knowing what narcissism is well in hand if you've been watching this channel, but you really need to know what narcissism is. This is not just a person being arrogant or speaking their mind or being abrupt. And we have another video about all the myths about narcissism. Please go check that video out too. But know what it is. So when you are seeing these patterns unfold, you see that they are in fact patterns. If it's a new person and you start seeing these patterns, maybe you sort of step back and don't engage as much. If it's someone you've known for a while and you see regularly, let's work on stopping being so surprised when they behave badly. Number 2 way to become more narcissist resistant is being more resistant to the C's, and the C's being things like charm, charisma, and confidence. To do this does mean breaking a lifetime of socialization and of programming. But pay attention when the charm and the charisma and the confidence and all that shiny stuff comes at you. Pay attention to their behavior instead of just their charm, as well as your justifications. Number 3 is radical acceptance. I know I keep coming here and a lot of people say, well, you just shut up about the radical acceptance. But it really builds up on the first point of know what it is. Then you have to accept that knowing what it is also means that you know it's really not going to change. It means recognizing that regardless of their backstory, this behavior is not okay, and it is harmful. It means knowing that nothing that you do short of subjugating yourself to them entirely is going to work, and you make your choices accordingly. When you get it, when you really get it, there's no more surprise, no more, maybe one last time, no more, maybe there's a different way I can say this. This is one of the strongest resistance tools of all. Number 4 way of becoming more narcissist resistant is learn their tells. There are some universal tells on narcissism. The impatience, the reactivity when they're criticized, their sort of flimsy relationship with the truth, their not listening to you, the victimhood, the hypocrisy, the dismissiveness. This stuff shows up early and often. Don't just write it off to their social anxiety or just the jitters as we get to know each other, or they don't really mean it. Poker players win at poker when they pay attention to the tells. You can do the same. Number 5 way to become narcissist resistant is to slow down. Time is actually your friend when you're trying to be narcissist resistant. It gives you time to be less reactive and instead pay attention to what your body is saying. But these relationships can often carry pressure, often from the narcissistic person. If it's a new relationship and they are pressuring you to move faster, get all in quicker, Ask to slow down, and if they say no, you just got your answer. When you are in a conversation with them that is confusing for you, step away from it, even if all you do is just escape to the restroom. Freeze responses are common when we are managing narcissistic folks, and having a moment to breathe and ground can make a difference. Number 6, don't feel that you have to educate everyone else. There is a risk for anyone who finally gets it, sees it clearly, embraces radical acceptance, that you feel like you want to let everyone in on the secret, on what it is, on how to get set free, or even just fill people in on why you have gone no contact or cut off from a family member or disengaged from a friend. Not everyone, sadly, is ready to hear it, and it can sometimes throw your healing off kilter if you do share your thoughts about narcissism and narcissistic abuse to someone who may be a little bit of an enabler, someone who may not have experienced a narcissistic relationship and doesn't appreciate, or it could be someone actually who doesn't appreciate the shift in their status quo that would have to happen because of what you're saying. Number 7 way of developing narcissist resistance is build support. One of the premier tools for becoming more narcissist resistant is to build support. You don't need lots of folks, just a few who have empathy, compassion, who can hear what you are saying, and may even be able to give you non-judgmental feedback. This may be therapy, it might be a support group for survivors, it might be a tight circle of friends, it could be a trusted family member. These are the folks who also help make you more gaslight resistant, because they may be willing to listen to that conversation you just happen to record and call it out straight when they hear the gaslighting in that conversation. Recently, I was in a particularly toxic conversation that was on speaker on my phone. There were other people around. It wasn't a confidential conversation. A kind person who was working with me and was in my midst, she listened to it all. I was quite confused when I got off the phone, and she looked at me and she said, "You know, the way that person talked to you, that wasn't okay." I was quite surprised. It was such a validating moment because I knew in my bones and in my body that it wasn't. But I am the patron saint of self-doubt. So, of course, I questioned myself. Her support in that moment made me steadfast, more steadfast, not only in my judgment about that situation, but actually also gave me more confidence, tiny bit more, in my judgments overall. Number 8 way to become narcissist resistant is meaning and purpose. It's so simple to say, so seemingly difficult to get to, but such a wonderful tool for becoming narcissist resistant. When we are able to invest ourselves into what matters, the meaning we make of a situation, the purpose we derive from the things we do, having some to focus on, something to focus on that doesn't involve us ruminating about being gaslighted or what we are doing wrong or disbelieving that they lied to us again. That's not purposeful. This isn't big ticket stuff. This can be smaller stuff like, what is one thing that makes me feel okay with getting out of bed today? Or what do I look forward to? Or who am I? What am I about? For so many survivors, you are so empathic, so compassionate, but that has essentially been wasted on the narcissistic person. Perhaps your meaning and purpose are derived from what you are already doing, just being a decent human being who cares, and now are going to put it into people and activities where it feels more meaningful. When you have this larger focus, the pettiness of narcissistic BS feels even more petty, insignificant, and we slowly learn that we have bigger things that matter to us. Number 9 is build self-compassion. The work on self-compassion, self-kindness, self-forgiveness, mindfulness, the recognition that all of us are going through something, and more folks are going through what you were going through than you realized, is actually incredibly powerful. Narcissistic relationships only work for the narcissistic person when we lose our self-compassion. And the longer we are in the narcissistic relationship, the more self-compassion we lose. Catching ourselves in self-judgment, being present with how we feel, and being curious about how we feel instead of just shaming ourselves, and also knowing that you aren't alone, can get you out of the rumination spiral that there is something wrong with you. And then you are less likely to succumb to the narcissistic person's manipulations. And then a number 10 tool to become more narcissist resistant is to learn your pressure points. We all have them. They may be related to the intrusions we may have experienced in our earlier narcissistic relationships. For example, being pressured to eat when you're not hungry, being pressured to not eat when you are hungry, having someone comment on your body, being pushed to do activities you didn't want to do. Or with strong reactions and behaviors such as yelling and verbal abuse, shutting down when we are compared to other people, feeling anxious when we sense someone isn't being honest with us about where they were. These could be considered triggers, but I consider them pressure points because when these are sort of hit in a relationship, we may feel as though we are internally having a strong reaction, perhaps disproportionately so. And when this happens, many survivors will view themselves as the problem. When you know these about yourself, instead of judging yourself, you can understand the history and become less likely to gaslight yourself when you are having a difficult moment. For example, if someone is yelling at you, and yet you recognize where it comes from. And instead of just simply saying, "Oh, there's something wrong with me," instead try recognizing that yelling doesn't work for you and it's very uncomfortable for you. An empathic person you share with them, right? When you share with an empathic person that something is an old wound, so it is affecting you, will respond with compassion. If you were to say that to a narcissistic person, they'll respond with contempt or call you overly sensitive. But knowing your pressure points can help you understand the times when you feel a bit more vulnerable. There's many more tips on becoming more narcissist resistant. So you have to read chapter 7. So please order the book. Becoming narcissist resistant is one of the greatest legacies of healing because it means that we have learned something and can put it into motion to keep ourselves aware in the long term. Thanks again.